The wind howled across the prairie, carrying with it the sting of cold rain and the eerie emptiness of a land too vast for comfort. Inside the ranch house, the walls creaked and the shutters rattled, but Luke barely noticed. He sat hunched in the rocking chair, the kind his wife used to sit in when she nursed their baby. Now, it was his body sunk into the wooden curve, his rough, calloused hands trying clumsily to soothe the small bundle in his arms. The child's face was blotched with red, tiny fists swinging as her mouth opened wide in another wail that pierced straight through him. Luke's head hung low, dark circles under his eyes. He hadn't slept more than an hour at a time since the funeral. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his wife lying still, the life gone from her body, leaving him with a baby too young to understand death but old enough to feel hunger gnaw at her. He had tried to do what little he could, warming water and mixing in cow's milk, mashing soft oats into something he thought the baby might manage. He'd even spooned sugar water between her lips, but she had turned her head, choking, crying harder. Each attempt left him more helpless, more desperate. Now, as the storm raged outside, the sound of his daughter's cries filled the small house, louder than the wind, louder than his own racing thoughts. He rocked harder in the chair, his voice breaking as he whispered, "I know, sweetheart, I know you're hungry. Daddy's trying." His hand trembled as he brushed her damp hair back from her tiny forehead. The baby's body trembled with sobs, her cries stretching thinner with exhaustion, and Luke felt his own chest seize. He pressed his lips to her forehead, closing his eyes, praying for some miracle he no longer believed would come. And then, 3 knocks. Sharp, clear, against the door. Luke froze, his heart leaping into his throat. Out here, visitors didn't come by chance. The ranch was isolated, miles from the nearest neighbor. The storm had driven even the cattle to shelter. Who could possibly be out there in the dark? The baby wailed again, reminding him of the choice before him. Slowly, stiffly, he rose, clutching her to his chest as though she were the last fragile thing in the world. He crossed the creaking wooden floor, each step weighted with both caution and hope. With his free hand, he pulled open the door. A gust of rain and wind rushed in, soaking his shirt instantly. But beyond the threshold stood a woman. Her hair was plastered to her face, droplets trailing down her cheeks, and her dress clung to her from the downpour. She looked weary, as if she had walked far, yet her gaze was steady, almost fierce, as it locked on the crying infant in his arms. "I heard her," the woman said softly, her voice carrying over the storm. "I heard the baby crying." Luke's lips parted, but no words came. He could only stare at her, bewildered, clutching his daughter tighter. The stranger stepped inside without waiting for him to answer, closing the door behind her and shutting out the storm. The room suddenly felt smaller, warmer, filled with a presence that stirred something inside him he hadn't felt in weeks, hope. Her eyes softened as she looked at the baby. "She's hungry," she murmured, more a statement than a question. Her hand, almost instinctively, rose to her chest, resting against the swell beneath the thin fabric of her wet dress. Luke's gaze followed the motion, and shame flushed through him. He tore his eyes away, staring at the floor. "She hasn't eaten," Luke rasped, his voice hoarse from nights of crying in silence. "I've tried, milk, oats, anything I could think of. Nothing works. She needs." His voice broke, and he couldn't bring himself to finish. The woman stepped closer, her movements calm, deliberate. "I can help," she said simply. Luke's head snapped up, his eyes searching hers. For a long moment, the room was filled only with the baby's soft sobs and the sound of the rain tapping the windows. Then, trembling, he extended the child toward her. The woman's arms enveloped the infant with practiced ease, as if she had done this countless times before. The baby nestled against her, and the cries quieted almost instantly, as though she could sense the comfort waiting for her. The stranger sat on the edge of the chair Luke had just left, cradling the child with tender care. She adjusted her dress slightly, shielding herself with a blanket from the couch, and held the baby close. Within moments, the tiny girl latched and suckled, her cries replaced by soft, desperate gulps of relief. Luke stood frozen, staring, his chest tight. The sight was both a balm and a wound. It reminded him of his wife, of the nights when he would watch her humming softly while nursing their child. The ache of loss surged through him, but mingled with it was something else, gratitude so deep it nearly brought him to his knees. His hand pressed against his mouth as tears blurred his vision. He turned slightly, ashamed to let the woman see the depth of his weakness. But his body shook, and a sob escaped despite his effort. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice broken. "God bless you, thank you." The woman glanced up at him, her expression steady, almost serene. "No thanks needed," she said. "Every child deserves to be fed. She's safe now." Luke nodded, but his throat was too tight to speak further. He sank into the other chair, burying his face in his hands. The sound of his daughter's contented sucking filled the room, soft and rhythmic, a sound he thought he'd never hear again. Relief washed over him like the rain outside, but unlike the storm, this relief carried warmth. For the first time since the grave was filled with dirt, Luke felt he was not entirely alone. Someone had come. Unexpected, unasked for, but exactly when he and his daughter needed her most. He sat in silence, listening to the sound of life returning to his child, and let himself breathe again. The storm raged on outside, but within the small ranch house, a fragile peace had been restored. And as Luke lifted his eyes to the woman who had arrived like a miracle on his doorstep, he knew that something had shifted forever. Would you like me to continue the next scene after this, where Luke begins to learn who the woman is and why she appeared that night, or keep this one scene complete and closed?